But it's also different. It kind of depends on what employers are posting for jobs. Like some weeks you'll find 20 in a day that all seem really exciting. And then other times it'll be 3 or 4 days and you're like, gosh, nothing's posted. Nothing feels new.
Hi, guys. Welcome to Response Able with Professor Nikki James.
I mean, louder is better in my opinion.
I think so.
Because then we can yell.
We can yell.
I feel like I have a fake loud voice. Because if I actually screamed right now, I would be super loud.
Welcome to episode 4 of the Response Able podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in and downloading episodes and listening into the conversations. It means so much to me. Today, you are going to hear from one of my amazing former students, Nora Shepard. Nora graduated in the spring of 2021, went through the graduate recruitment process, and is now working in her first full-time job. I caught up with Nora last week to hear about how it's been going now that she's 3 months in, and to ask her advice for all of you guys out there who are about to embark on the same journey that she went through last year. I cannot wait for you to hear her journey and the amazing wisdom and advice that she shares along the way. Let's jump in.
My name is Nora Shepard. I was Professor Nikki's student just this last spring, so exactly a year ago, in Global Social Enterprise. A different professor actually told me to take your class, and I had a couple of electives left, so it technically didn't contribute to anything. It was just something I was interested in, and I'm really glad I took it.
Okay, so as I mentioned, the whole point of this podcast is just about career journeys and helping to show people all the different ways that people tackle making the transition from university into the real world. And I've been interviewing people. Some people have been 20 years into their career. You're a little bit different to that. You currently 6 months in or something like that, 12 months in?
Even if you include the job search. If you include the job search, only 3 months in, since October.
And I think include the job search because that's like a full-time job in itself.
It was. I'm sure we'll talk about it. That was, started in May, I guess. So 8 months.
8 months. Okay, so we're about to have a year anniversary in 4 months. But tell me a story from your younger years that contributed to you wanting to make the positive impact that you want to make with your career.
So I remember when I was little, I would always dream about like what I wanted to do when I was older. And obviously I had all the phases of like, I want to be a vet to I want to be a teacher because I like loved my second grade teacher. I want to be a marine biologist, like every phase imaginable. And then I think I got to a place where I was like, okay, I want to help people. And immediately my mind was like, I want to be a doctor. Because we're told so frequently that doctors are who helps people and who supports people. But then I think just the more I lived and the more I had different experiences and connected with different people, even when I was young, I realized like doctors are only like a very, very small section of who can make a difference in the world. And I was like, my hairdresser is so cool and so encouraging. And like my mom's been her client for years and she's definitely made an impact on our lives. Or someone who worked at our church growing up was super impactful to us. So also I couldn't stand the view of blood. So that narrowed things down pretty quickly too.
Yes, I imagine so.
Yeah, but I think it was just the realization of how many people were in my life that I feel like made my life better. And none of them had the same role. And none of them were necessarily like famous or like aiming to like have this super grand thing. I think that what they all shared in common is being super intentional people and really authentic. And I was like, I want to be like that. I want to be exciting. I want to make people feel warm. I want to connect with all sorts of people. And yeah, I think that was very eye-opening to me.
That's really cool. So it wasn't necessarily what you wanted to do, but who you wanted to be.
I
And-
think so. Yeah,
Yeah.
that summarized it a lot more concisely than I just did.
Hey, but it's always good to hear the story. So in that light, that would have made kind of deciding what to study and what you ended up ultimately graduating in maybe a little bit interesting because you were probably just fascinated with all sorts of different things. So what did you actually end up studying, and any kind of transitions or changes you made along the way?
Yes, good question, because it did change a couple times. So right when I came into Northeastern, I had a combined major of journalism and media screen studies. I had been a senior and junior in high school during COVID, and I love to write. So I think those were the biggest things that kind of impacted that decision. Is I was consuming a lot of really great content because we were all in our homes. And then
We didn't have many other options.
no. But it also opened my eyes to like how many really great and intellectual and impactful things writers are doing and how many things are out there. But then I was like, I don't really want to be a screenwriter. Like, I don't want to only sell scripts. I would love to learn more about something else. So that's why I chose journalism. But then after my first journalism class at Northeastern, I decided it wasn't for me. I was like, I don't want to be a reporter. What I'm more interested in is like storytelling, and I like reading a lot of opinion pieces, which are written more by subject matter experts rather than journalists. So I switched to the business school, and I had done a lot of business clubs and different types of work in high school, so that felt pretty natural. And then at Northeastern, we have a concentration, or we have to have a concentration while we're in the business school. So I studied entrepreneurship because I think kind of what you were saying earlier about being interested in so many different things and wanting to be a really like informed person who's savvy and fast moving and looks at the big picture was really appealing to me. So even though I didn't have a business idea, and still don't necessarily, it was an idea that I want to learn more about, like growing and scaling something and seeing an idea through. So then that's what I ended up doing, and I graduated with a major in business administration. My concentration was in entrepreneurship, and then I kept my minor in communications, which was really just ended up being some leftover credits from my first couple semesters.
And I like you can actually say that in one breath. I have heard if you're not a Northeastern student, they add a lot of different things. I've had students that have to take a breath because they're like, I'm majoring in this, minoring in this, and I have a concentration in this and this and this. And you're just like, oh.
And for the record, I was a peer mentor in my senior year of college when I was taking your class. It doesn't make a huge difference, like how many breaths your major takes. I think that's not talked about
Wisdom
enough,
right there.
especially at Northeastern. I mean, talk to me in 10 years. Hopefully, I'm doing something I love, but I don't think there's going to be any correlation between the people who have like the longest majors and the people who are, most successful or happiest.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that as well. But it is entertaining when I ask people at the beginning of every class, I ask the students, like, what are you studying? And they're just like, some of them it's like, oh, I'm doing business. And some of them it's like, and I'm like, what?
Yeah, and it can be really
How do you remember what that is?
It can be really intimidating, I feel like, in the moment as a student, when you're like, your peers have this long list and you're like, oh my gosh, you have so many things you want to do. You must have everything together. I feel like the imposter syndrome sneaks in really fast, but yeah.
I don't think you are alone in that. In
Yeah.
that imposter syndrome with those, because you often, from my vantage point in the classroom, you see everybody's eyes get real big when, like, where everybody's kind of like, whoa, at the same
Interesting.
time. But obviously, the person saying it doesn't necessarily see that, because most of you are looking at me, not at the person that's speaking. So, yeah, it's really interesting to watch those responses for sure. You graduated in May last year, so May of 2025. What are you doing now?
Right now, I am working at an ad agency. I'm still in Boston. I'm working on paid social, so social media advertising. It's somewhat connected to my co-ops, which were in marketing.
How long have you been there now?
I've been at Digitas for only 3 months. I started in October.
And with your co-ops that you did as part of Northeastern's co-op program, were they similar to what you're doing now? Were they different? Did you do a co-op and realize that you needed to switch paths, or were they both aligned to what you're doing now?
Not totally. So both of my co-ops, I sat on marketing teams in-house rather than at an agency, which is where I'm at now. But I had a different job function. So now I work on paid social advertising. So setting up and analyzing the ads that you see on all of your social feeds. But at my co-ops, both of them were in SEO, search engine optimization, which is basically helping things show up on Google higher in the rankings so that people are more aware of them. And that was a little bit more writing focused, and my job now is a bit more analytical, which I'm grateful for because I think it rounds out my skills a little bit. Like, I'm always going to like writing and content and brainstorming ideas and stuff. But I think that this is a really good opportunity because I'm seeing day to day, like what's resonating with people, what's making money, which is impactful, even in impact work. So I really describe it as different than my co-ops, but also an extension and rounding out my knowledge in marketing.
Yeah, that's awesome. And now, how did you get there? Specifically, like, what did your recruitment journey look like? Because I know that is something that my students that are in the classroom right now, they're just gearing up. We're recording this in January of 2026. And students are starting, the ones that are graduating are starting to look at going out and doing recruitment, not just co-op recruitment, but first job out in the real world recruitment. What was that process like for you?
To be honest, the process was so stressful. It was also nice break, I would say, because I had moments of being really stressed and I didn't know what the future was going to look like. But I also had moments of like, you know what, if I had jumped into a real job right away, like that would have been stressful too, transitioning right out of school. So I got to have a real summer, which was nice, but it was also filled with job searching.
Did you have a particular strategy that you use, like a certain amount of jobs per day, or what approach did you take? What did you apply any sort of method, or was it just whatever you felt in the moment?
Looking back, I probably could have had a bit more of a method, but it's also different. It kind of depends on what employers are posting for jobs. Like some weeks you'll find 20 in a day that all seem really exciting, and then other times it'll be 3 or 4 days and you're like, gosh, nothing's posted, nothing feels new or that I'm qualified enough for or feel strongly enough about that it'd be worth applying. So I think it ended up being a bit more in the moment and like when I had energy to do it, really embracing that, and then but also like being kind to myself and letting myself work my retail job. And, if I had a shift that night working retail and was job searching all day, like that ended up being a 12-hour workday. So being mindful of that, and the burnout can come really fast. So I think it's about a balance, knowing what you can handle, but also giving yourself enough structure and routine so that you're able to be successful and kind of gain traction in the job search, because it is a numbers game, I feel like, at the end of the day. Like,
Yes.
the more you apply, the better chances you have. So,
Did you kind of stay in contact with any of your friends that were graduating around the same time? Were you guys all supporting each other and encouraging each other, or was it a bit more of a solo journey?
I think both. We were all definitely supporting and encouraging each other, but also everyone's journey looked different. Some people are moving faster at certain times. Some people are moving slower at some certain times. Some people would have 2 interviews in a week, and then you'd chat with them and be like, oh, gosh, I haven't had an interview for 3 weeks, and that could be hard. But I think it's nice to have people around just so to know that you're not alone and that it's stressful for everyone.
Yeah. No, I agree for sure. But it's cool that you did get to kind of collaborate, or at least like not collaborate, but like touch base with people. And so it didn't feel like you were all by yourself or trying to do it all alone, or feeling like, I think sometimes I've found you might feel like everyone else is so much further along the journey than you. But then when you talk to people, you're like, oh no, we're all just in the same spot, like just slightly different, but collectively together, which is really cool. So how do you see what you're doing right now, right? Because we're talking about making an impact, and you so eloquently talked about how you want to be, who the person you want to be in the world. How do you see what you're doing now connecting to the positive impact that you want to have with your career or just with your life in general?
Yeah, it's definitely a big question. And I've been leaning into the idea lately that like life is long, not everything has to happen all at once. So right now I think it's a lot about learning, like I said, rounding out my marketing knowledge and just becoming more competent about the way that businesses run and the certain goals that they have, because that's always going to be useful. I feel like that was a big topic in your class, is like the more that we can think about social enterprises this way, the more profitable they become, and often the more they're able to grow. There's a lot of directions I could go because in my free time, I've kind of circled back to that interest I have in writing and have been writing a blog post every week, which has been nice because I don't have homework at this point, obviously, since I'm graduated.
You're giving yourself homework. I love it.
But I am able to like do that every week, and that's something that I think I only have like 26 subscribers right now, but it's super fun to have a conversation with someone and say, or hear them say, oh, that really resonated with me. And it's not for an assignment or anything, so it can really be whatever I want. So that's something I'm also working on right now. And at work, just, I got nervous talking about the blog, but
you might have a few more subscribers now. Who knows?
True. I guess the last thing I'm working on is getting really connected with people at work and in and around Boston. I wasn't sure if I would land a grad job in Boston or somewhere else because I'd love to move someplace warm in the near-ish future. But I'm really grateful I landed here, and there's so many smart people that I feel like I just didn't have the time to fully connect with when I was in college because I was so busy working and doing co-ops and school, that it's been really fun to connect with people that I already know just in a deeper way. And everyone's been really, really helpful and smart and supportive in the things I want to do. So
that's really cool. I think it's really great that you proactively like reach out to people to connect and have like, it sounds like a lot of people say yes. I think there's sometimes that mindset where it's like, oh, those people are busy. They won't have time for me. But it sounds like just reaching out and asking, you're getting positive opportunity to connect with lots of people.
Yeah, it's really fun. And I think one thing that I heard recently after connecting with someone is, and just in terms of how what we do in our 9 to 5 applying to maybe our longer term goals or impact goals, etc., is she has her own business. She's a yoga teacher and she's also a potter. And we were talking about my co-ops, and I told her how I did SEO for 2 of them, and I was like, well, it led me to work for 2 really cool companies. I don't know that SEO is something I want to do forever, and I'm not doing it anymore. But like I'm grateful for the opportunities it gave me. And then she was like, and you never know when it will circle back, because for her and her business, when she's selling her pottery, like SEO is something she has to think about because she sells online. So I think like being really intentional and wholehearted about where you are and trying to soak in as much as you can, even though it's maybe not your main thing or your favorite thing, is important because you never know when it'll circle back. And usually, if you have the skills like it, you'll always find a way to use them, will or someone will, I guess, find a way to use them for you and like be grateful that you have those skills because yeah, it's always needed.
Yeah, I think I have that perspective myself from looking back at my career in the retrospect, right?
Mhm.
Seeing how things that I was doing that I didn't really get that I was doing when I was 20 or 25 or whatever, having a scenario where it circles back. So, for example, my first job, I think I shared this in class, but I actually graduated in exercise science. So, my first job, I was actually working as an outdoor education instructor at a camp. So, now that I actually think about it, I also was technically teaching as well. So, it kind of dovetails into my career and my life in many ways. But it was so odd. I only did it for about 6 months, if that. It was like very first job until I got a job in like being a fitness trainer. And then fast forward, I think it was like probably 6 years, I ended up in China setting up a charity arm of my friend's business. And the business was an outdoor education business. And when I got there to set up the charity and get the charity operations off the ground, the general manager had oversold the company's services for a particular season. So I ended up actually needing to be an instructor as well as trying to set up the charity. So it was really amazing that I had that past experience that seemed really random in retrospect, but it made sense because it enabled me to kind of like serve where I was in that moment because I had those skills. So yeah, so it's cool that I don't think I had that perspective when I was looking at it forward. So it's really cool that you actually see that already. It's like, oh, this is all going to be used. And you just get
Yeah.
to find out why in the future, why and how in the future, which is super cool.
Yeah, I don't think that anything is a waste. I always say this, it's probably my favorite quote ever is knowledge is power. And like the more that you learn and observe and speak to people, I think the better off you are. And also, the more you speak to people and connect with people, they're more aware of who you are and how they can put your skills to use or those kind of one-off past experiences that you maybe didn't think were super relevant in the moment, but then they hear that and they're so excited about it because it's just what they need. So yeah, I think it's cool how it all kind of braids together.
Yeah, that's so awesome. I love that. All right. So you're in the first 3 months of your career. Are you thinking at all yet about what it might look like in like 5 years' time or where you hope you might be in 5 years' time? Or are you just focusing on being in the moment?
I think for me, there's always a tension between being in the moment and dreaming about what's ahead. So, but I think right now my priority is making the most of where I am right now. So, like I said, becoming really competent in some of those harder skills like that I do at work every day. So some of the analytics and the social media marketing because that's really not going anywhere. Also, those are things that I can definitely rely on. And what I said about making the most of my time in Boston and connecting with the people that are here now rather than like thinking too far ahead into the future. But I also think like dreaming about the future and listening to podcasts and following people who are aspirational or whether it's journaling about what you want to do or whatever it may be, I think like that's kind of the fire in you that keeps you moving forward, that helps you not burn out is because you know that something really exciting is ahead and you have lots of big ideas. So I think it's kind of like the synergy of being in the moment and also being able to dream and think ahead that makes like going to work every day and connecting with the people you want to connect with really fun and important.
Yeah, that's so great. I love it. So wise. Okay, so rewind a year, right? So what would you tell your past self who is just about to start the recruitment journey again?
Yeah, I'm laughing because right away when you asked about how the recruitment journey was, I immediately said, "Oh, it was stressful." Mm, So let's see. I think I would tell myself, someone told me this, there's no right path, there's just your path. And I think as soon as you can take out the pressure of there being a right path or the perfect next step that's going to lead to the next best thing, it makes it so much easier just to like be open to the opportunities that are actually in front of you. And that might look a lot different to someone who is, wants to be a doctor or go into investment banking or a lawyer, like go to law school. That advice might be different, but I feel like a lot of the students that I've been peers with in business classes, especially like the social impact classes, or have mentored throughout like co-op mentoring, there's kind of this openness that can be a little bit overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
So I think telling myself, yeah, that there's no wrong step. The only wrong step is I think doing nothing or staying still. I think I would also like warn myself it'll be hard. Like the job market is tough. We're not owed anything. I will say I interviewed at two different like dream companies and I didn't land either of them. Both of those were very hard days this summer and fall. But I think leaning into the idea that there's no wrong path and that maybe because those didn't work out means like I can be talking with you today
Mm-hmm.
because I was able to write more blog posts because I had more time on my hands. Like everything kind of makes sense, and the more you're able to embrace what's here, I think that's kind of a theme that I've been leaning on, the better off you'll be. And I think the last thing would be like it's okay to rest. Like I said, those 12-hour work days get long.
It's the thing we always forget.
Yeah, it can be tough, and like no one I don't think in the history of ever has ever said like unemployment or job searching is fun or glamorous. Like it's hard for every single person.
Mm-hmm.
So like at those really low moments when you're like, "Oh my gosh, like what was this all for? Like I'm never going to get a job. Why didn't I just do like finance?" For me, that was like a question I had. That's a universal feeling, like no matter what sector, industry. I even think it goes across ages or like levels in the hiring process. But like it's going to be hard, but like keep showing up, like stay committed, lean on your people for support. Accountability is also really helpful. So talking to people, whether it's a mentor or like I always checked in with my grandma and grandpa because they were super supportive about my job search and just encouraging, even though they're not like active in the job market. They were just like great listening ears that I could rely on. So I think all of those things are helpful too because it's not easy or glamorous, but I do think it works out.
That's so good. I love that. My last question was any final thoughts or tips or advice you have for others, but I feel like what you said that you were going to tell yourself, your past self, is those tips. But if anything else comes to mind, and it's okay if not, because that was amazing.
I think you're right that, yeah, what I would say to myself is what I would pass on to anyone else who's in that position.
This has been so much fun. Thank you. Honestly, that was all the questions.
Wow.
Like, it goes fast. That was 30 minutes.
Wow.
More than 30 minutes. Since we started. Time flies when you have fun, guys. But thank you so much for coming. I think we were chatting earlier on in the week, or maybe it was last week. It is probably a lot easier for me and some of the other people that I interview on this podcast to share their story because it's in the review mirror, it's in hindsight. It takes a lot of courage to share when it's really real and really new. So thank you for coming and being willing to do this. And being open, I honestly think that even though your mentoring days of university students are over, I think a lot of students in my classes and perhaps in other classes will really be encouraged and learn something from your story. So thank you for being open and having the courage to share what the journey was like for you and what you're doing and how you're thinking about it. So yeah, thanks so much for joining us. And we'll have to do another one of these a little bit down the line and see where you're at.
Yeah, the million-dollar question. Thank you for having me. It's super fun, and I think if anything, I like to try new things and be open. So being connected with like-minded people, whether it's classmates or peers or, like I said, yoga instructors or professors. I think like the more open you can stay, the better off you are. So I appreciate your openness too.
Yeah, cool. And talking about being open to things, are you open to sharing what your writing handle is so people can find you on Substack?
Sure, I post on Substack every Thursday. I have been since October, so it's kind of just been a brain dump. Sometimes I feel like I totally have something to write about. Sometimes I go through my drafts and pull something that seems to resonate, but it's called Good Disaster. My first blog post tells you more about the name and what that means to me and how I found it. But yeah, check it out.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Gosh, that was so good. I wished that I had Nora's wisdom when I was her age. Mine has taken a little bit longer to develop. I hope that listening to Nora's story and journey going through the recruitment process and what she learned and the advice that she would give herself if she was going through it again, I hope you found it really helpful. And if you are about to go through that journey yourself, please remember that you're not alone, that everybody that's going through the process with you is having their own unique experience, but is having the highs and the lows just like you are. The days where there feels like there's no jobs and the days where it feels like there's 100 things that they want to do. So share it with people, get support when you need it, and I cannot wait to hear where you all land. And please don't forget to follow Nora's Substack. The link is in the show notes page. See you next week.